Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 727, 727, March the 20th, 2019, Wednesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, of course it is Wednesday. That's the day that I take out the trash and have me some pasta. Yes, I'll be having pasta this evening and we'll keep that up for a while and then maybe I'll try another dish. Maybe I'll go back to chicken. Who knows? We'll see what happens. In the meantime, let's get with what's happening here. Okay, so it's being reported today on the conservative treehouse that Rodenstein has come to an agreement with Attorney General Barr to stay a little while longer. Oh, won't you stay just a little bit longer? Yeah, I'm not very happy with that myself. I was hoping Rodenstein would have been gone a long time ago. I don't know the reason for this, but they're suggesting at Conservative Treehouse that Barr is kind of saying to Rodenstein, hey, you created a hell of a mess with this special counsel thing. You're not just going to skip out the back door and drop it all on me. You're going to stick around while I unravel this thing, and you are going to help me. So that is what Conservative Treehouse is saying. That's possible. It's certainly possible that that's the strategy that Barr is using here. But in my mind, Rodenstein is up to his eyeballs in the fiasco. He wanted to wear a wire, and I don't think he was joking. He signed off on that fourth FISA warrant. He allowed Uncle Bob to run completely wild. He provided the second scope memo, which none of us have ever seen. He has been working with Uncle Bob the executioner to block Congress from getting documents that would prove the criminal activities. So, to me, he's dirty as hell. Why would I want the rat, Rodenstein, to be around? If it were me and I were AG Barr, I would come in day one and said, Rod, I've been reading some documents. Guess what? Number one, you're fired, because I'm going to bring in my own deputy AG. Number two, lawyer up. So I'm not very happy about this. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I don't like seeing Rodenstein around any longer, unless, of course, he's going to turn and drop the dime on everybody. Now, in that case, it might be okay. Do you think Rodenstein is told... do you think that Barr has told Rodenstein that he sniffed out what's going on and he's in a world of trouble? Unless maybe he wants to cooperate. Do you think maybe Rodenstein has decided to cooperate? I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. But I know I don't like it because it keeps Rodenstein around. Whenever Rodenstein is around, things stink. We'll see what happens. Well, the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of Trump. The ruling clears law enforcement to detain and deport illegals after they have served their time in the U.S. for other crimes, regardless of whether they were picked up immediately or later, after their criminal release. Of course, this decision reverses the ruling made by the Ninth Circuit. Yeah, I mean, should we be surprised that the Ninth Circuit was overturned by the Supreme Court? It happens almost every damn time. And I knew this decision was going to be overturned. This is no surprise to me. And there's 2 or 3 others that are going to be overturned as well. And if they try to take this most recent situation to the Supreme Court with Trump declaring a national emergency, they'll lose that too. He has every right to declare the national emergency. It's right there. It's in the Constitution. I can read it for you if you'd like. So yeah, that's what's going on there. Another win for President Trump. Another loss for the demo commies. Well, what the hell is going on at Fox? Not that I'm a big fan or anything, but Fox is the only place where you'll see, you know, Joe DeGeneva or Sarah Carter or John Solomon or Paul Sperry or Lee Smith or someone like that. you'll never see them on any other networks, and that's the only reason I go there. And I kind of like Tucker Carlson. His show's fairly entertaining, but I can't watch anything else on Fox. I can't take Hannity. I mean, I like Hannity in some ways. He's kind of reformed his neocon ways to some extent, but he could flip tomorrow. But he has a lot of good guests on the show. If I watch Hannity, I skip the entire first half of the show when it's all him jabbering. And then I go right just to the guests. And I listen to the guest, and when he starts talking, I skip it, and I go to the guest, back to the guest. I just skip Sean Hannity completely. And I just want to hear what his guests have to say. And I kind of like Tucker. Other than that, I really have no use for Fox. And I don't think that they're this great brother in arms with us at all. I really don't. A lot of people like them. I like Judge Janine, though. I thought she was, kind of fiery, and, I liked her some, but they pulled her off the air, and she's probably not coming back, would be my guess. But now it appears, in addition to bringing, what's her name, the cheater, Donna Brazile. Once they brought the cheater, Donna Brazile, into the game, now it appears that they've just named Paul Big Ears Eddie Munster Ryan as a board member. They've named him as a board member of Fox Corporation, which is, of course, the parent company of Fox News. That means that he is now one of 7 board members, and he'll make about $300 to $400 a year to sit on the board at Fox and screw us some more. He screwed us as Speaker of the House, and now he's going to screw us as a board member of Fox. He was involved in the coup. In fact, I'm not even going to go there. Let me just say this, that I think that Paul Ryan may have been, based on some emails that I've read, I think it's very possible that Paul Ryan may have been involved in something worse than a coup, if you know what I mean. Something that would be slightly, or very similar, I should say, very similar to the type of thing that may have gone down on the grassy knoll, if you know what I mean. I think there's a very good possibility that Ryan may have been involved in something like that, and that it may have been called off. That's what I think, based on some emails that I have read. So let it go with that. But anyway, Fox News has named that Paul Ryan, Fox Corporation, head of Fox, owns Fox News. Fox Corp is named Paul Ryan as a new board member. Can't get rid of these people. Can't get rid of them. Nothing you can do. He knows we don't like him. He doesn't care. Just like the Rotten Reverend. She knew no one liked her. She don't care. They don't care. They're going to ram you down our throats. They're going to ram themselves down our throats, is what I mean. They're going to force themselves on us. My oh my. Trump needs to start his own network. That's what his kids should do. That's what, there you go, Ivanka and Jared. That's what they can do. They can leave Washington, and they could maybe get together with the other 2 brothers, and maybe they could start a new news organization. That's something they could do. That might help. Maybe a real news organization that actually reports real news. How about that for a change? I'd support that. Screw Fox. Well, and speaking of that same topic, Gateway Pundit is reporting that Brett Baer and Shepard Smith were behind getting Judge Janine suspended. Now, Baer is, of course, denying this, but he probably lies. I never did like Brett Baer very much. I just don't trust him. He's got a face that I can't trust. That's just it. I don't know him. I don't watch him. I don't follow him. I don't keep up with his track record. It's none of those things. It's just my gut instinct. I look at Brett Baer and I think, I don't think I can trust that guy. And of course we know all about Shepard Smith. Yes, we know about Cinderfella Shepard Smith with the bad drinking habit and his other issues. Have no use for him whatsoever. Don't even know why he was ever at Fox. He would fit in perfectly at CNN. Let's see. Oh, yes. Trump had his press conference with Bolsonaro today. I like Bolsonaro. I like that guy. He's got a lot of grit, man. He's got a lot of grit. Tough guy. And I'm glad to have him in charge there in Brazil. And I think he'll do a great job there. And so anyway, Trump was taking questions during the Q&A, and someone in the media asked the question, Megan. It was someone in the media who asked him the question, Megan Magoo, the well-fed daughter of Senator Magoo, the late Senator Magoo, who thinks that her dad lives in Trump's head. No, he doesn't. But when Trump's asked a question, or when he's commenting on something regarding Magoo, he's gonna tell you what he thinks. And he was asked at the press conference about his comments about Magoo. And Trump again said very plainly, look, he said, Magoo essentially gave us Obamacare. He said we could have repealed Obamacare. That's what McCain campaigned on for years. Then he gave us the thumbs down. And he stuck us all with Obamacare. Maybe forever. And some other things, as Trump said. And he finished it off by saying that he was never a fan of McCain and never will be. It was short and sweet. He didn't elaborate on a whole lot of things. He just said, hey, he cost us the repeal vote of Obamacare. Never liked that. And I was never a fan and never will be. And he did some other things too. Who cares? Move on. Next question. So, that's how that went down. But I love the fact that Trump never backs down. Never backs down. He doubles down because he's right. And he knows he's right. And I love it when he does it. And so do you. And that's why he's going to win again in 2020. Well, what do we have here? We have Chief Spreading Bull, Elizabeth Warren, again talking about getting rid of the Electoral College. I can't believe that. I'm not even going to go through this again. I've been through it too many times. Those of you who watch my videos know my position on it. It's really simple. I mean, this is not tough at all. But this argument that she was making was that, well, because we have the Electoral College, we only go to like 8 or 10 states. We don't even go to California and really do anything there because they vote so late. Well, not anymore. They're voting fourth now, dum-dum. Maybe she's not keeping up with the schedule. They've been moved to the fourth primary. So anyhow, she's talking about framing it in this argument, suggesting that the Electoral College means that we only look at a few states. But if you were to flip it and do a popular vote, you would have even fewer states. Because at that point, the only thing you would need to do is go to the 5 or 6 most populous cities. You'd go to New York, you'd go to Los Angeles, you'd go to Philadelphia, you'd go to Chicago, you'd go to Dallas, Fort Worth, and you might go to Miami. And the entire campaign would consist of campaigning in those cities. That's where all the people are. No one would ever campaign in Missouri anymore, or Iowa, or the Dakotas, or probably even Ohio, or Indiana, or Kentucky. I mean, or Minnesota, Michigan, Alabama, Louisiana. I mean, no one would ever even go to these states anymore. You would actually end up with the exact thing that she's complaining about. You would get more of it. The woman is a freaking dingbat. She's a dingbat. And she won't answer the question on reparations. She keeps dodging it. She has no hope. No hope. She's not going to win the nomination. She's not even going to get close. She's not even going to make it to the VP spot. She should drop out now and save herself the embarrassment, but she's going to rack up a lot of money, is she not? Remember, in almost all these states where these people are from, these Democrats running, they get to keep the money. They go out and raise a lot of money. This gives them a reason to go out and raise a lot of money, and then when they lose, they get to keep the money. That's why there's 25 or 50 damn Democrats running. It's a money-making scheme. And Bernie's building that list. My, oh my. Stuff's so easy. This is easy, man. It's like taking candy from a baby. Well, I don't know how many of you saw Mark Meadows on Hannity last night, but it was pretty good. Last night, Mark Meadows said that there are sitting ambassadors who were involved with the deep state coup. That's right. He said that there are currently sitting ambassadors who were involved with the deep state coup. Who do you think he's talking about? I'm working on that. I am working on that. There are sitting ambassadors who were involved with the deep state coup. When he said it, it kind of threw me a curve because I'm like, whoa, that's the first I've heard of that. I mean, I know about all this other stuff. That's the first time I've heard anybody bring ambassadors into play. But keep in mind, Meadows has seen all the documents. He's interviewed all the witnesses. He knows something we don't know. And he's saying that there are sitting ambassadors who were involved with deep state coup. Now, what he didn't say was whether or not they're American ambassadors or whether they're foreign ambassadors, like maybe Mr. Down the Hatch Downer, for example. But there could be American ambassadors as well. I can't wait to find out what Mark Meadows is talking about. He also said that there will be new information coming out that will show that not only was there no collusion, but that there was a coordinated effort to take down the president. He says the documents are coming out. He says this is all coming out. It's going to prove there was no collusion. It's going to prove they were trying to take the president down, and that there are current sitting ambassadors who were part of the coup plot. And he also says, when Sean Hannity asked him about, oh, you mean the stuff like the Gang of Eight stuff and the Carter Page 28 pages of the Carter Page FISA and the Bruce Orr 302s, you mean that? And Meadows is like, oh yeah, that stuff too. Yeah, we're going to get that out too, and yeah, that's important too. But no, there's other things that it's not even talked about yet. Other things that's not even in the media yet. Things that are going to come out. That's what he's talking about. It's kind of what Nunes said when he said, well, we've got about 2/3 of this type of information, but there's another chunk, about another third of a chunk, that no one's even heard about, talked about, knows nothing about at all. It's something, and they both make it sound like there's something else that we haven't learned about, that we're going to learn about. And they don't act like, Nunes and Meadows are not acting like it's a maybe. They're saying it's coming out. And it sounds like he's talking about sooner rather than later. Now, here's something that blew my mind, and I'm sure many of you probably already know this. It didn't really get past me because I actually did see this when I first reported on this, but I didn't write it down and I didn't mention it during the video or two where I talked about it. But I wanted to go especially to talk about it today very briefly. Because it is another thing that's just absolutely astonishing regarding Christopher Steele and his admitting and his deposition that he used this CNN website, this CNN iReport website, as his source for the story about Mr. Gubarev and his company Webzilla being directly behind the hack of the DNC, which of course is bullshit. What I forgot to tell you, and many of you already know this, so if you know it, you know it. But if you don't, you're going to be really surprised when I tell you this. That iReport that Christopher Steele was referring to was written in 2009. The story he was talking about was written in 2009. That would be 7 years before. 7 years before the 2016 campaign. So it doesn't make sense to me that he's reading a story about Mr. Gubarev's company Webzilla involved in hacking for the Russian government. Certainly the story wasn't saying that he was hacking for the Russian government in the Trump campaign, because back in 2009 nobody had any idea Trump would even be a thought in anybody's mind about as being a presidential candidate. If this story was written in 2009, it couldn't have said anything about Trump. It could only have been a story talking about Mr. Gubarev's company maybe being associated with Putin's government or being involved in hacking or something like that. It had to be something very generic. Couldn't have had anything to do with Trump because the story was written in 2009. Just absolutely amazing that Christopher Steele will be referring to a story from 2009 to make the case that Webzilla hacked the DNC in 2016. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I have no doubt. I can't wait for the day, because I'm sure it's going to happen, when Christopher Steele is going to be sitting in front of a grand jury, and he is going to have to say exactly what I've been saying for a very long time. And now other people, everybody's jumping on the bandwagon, but I've been saying it for over a year, well over a year. When Christopher Steele has to sit there and say, you know what? I wasn't the author of the dossier. I wasn't the author of the dossier. The information was being flowed to me from a few collectors. Like I said, who's that? Nellie, Glenn Simpson, his wife, and a few other people, which we're going to talk about. And all I did was sign off on it. They wanted to use my name, my credibility, and my ability to pass it through to the FBI, to the State Department, and various other people in the media. I was there to give it credibility. I did not write the damn dossier, okay? That is what's eventually going to come out when he finds himself in front of a federal grand jury. That is what is going to happen. That is absolutely going to happen. I'm sure of it. And I can't wait. Well, we have Bolsonaro saying that Brazil stands with Trump against gender ideology, political correctness, and fake news. Brazil stands with Trump against gender ideology, political correctness, and fake news. And he said that they are talking about Brazil maybe joining NATO. What if Brazil joined NATO? Oh man, you talk about a finger in the eye to China and the Russians. They wouldn't like that very much. And they're part of the BRICS. Brazil's part of the BRICS. Does that mean they would leave BRICS? And if they do, well, it's kind of hard to have BRICS without Brazil. They're the King Kong of the South American chapter. You know what I mean? Brazil, the South American chapter is pretty much defunct, right? Well, it looks like the Pentagon has found $12.8 billion for Trump's border wall. The Pentagon has found $12.8 billion for Trump's border wall. Yeah, probably out of that $3 trillion or so that they couldn't find after 9/11. Remember the audit after 9/11? Like $3 trillion they couldn't find? Sure, they can find $12.8 billion. They got trillions stashed back. My, oh my. Well, it looks like it's being reported now. This should work out real well for Kamala Harris. It's being reported now that during her time as a DA, she sent about 120,000 people of color to jail. That's a lot of people to put in jail, don't you think? I'm sure that's going to go over very well with the base, with the SJWs. They'll really enjoy the fact that Kamala sent 120,000 people of color to the big house. Let's see how she explains that one. Of course, we have Beto out there, the skateboarder, Bobby O'Rourke, saying that he supports late-term abortions. Uh-oh, that's a problem if you want to get elected president in the United States. Mainly because only 12% of Americans support late-term abortion. Good going, Beto. You're a dumbass. So, the last few days there's been kind of a shift towards focusing and paying attention on the role that British intelligence had in the Trump coup. Bongino's been talking about it. H.A. Goodman's talked about it. And it's from this story, and of course Trump retweeted it, floating it out there that the British wanted to try to pit us against the Russians, which, yeah, that's true, but it's kind of true of a lot of countries in Western Europe. It's kind of true of a lot of other countries that we're aligned with. But as I said, I just want to go into more depth on this here. I really doubt seriously if the British government instigated Spygate. That they're, because people are trying to make us, it was the British all along. It was the British who did Spygate. No. It wasn't the British who did Spygate. The British were probably recruited by John Brennan. He motivated them to assist him. They didn't do this all on their own, and they couldn't have. Again, they share information through this intelligence network, the Five Eyes, and anything that any one member sees, the rest see. So if the British government would have tried to spy on Trump or anyone or do anything like that in the U.S., it's not like they could do it without us knowing about it. And they're not just going to start doing something like that without getting it cleared first. At least making it known to the FBI, the CIA, just so they don't step on one another's feet or get themselves into some trouble. I mean, the idea that Great Britain could have even pulled all this off is just not true. Obviously, they didn't like Trump. He supported Brexit. He was saying things that certainly wouldn't have made the British establishment very happy. Obviously, they were in the tank for Hillary, just like the Ukrainian government. In fact, the Ukrainian government was more directly involved in the coup plot than the British government. I don't think it was so much the British government, even though we know that Theresa May and Boris Johnson were both being briefed on the dossier and things like that. But you really had three different things going on here. You had the British government, but you had the GCHQ, the NSA version, the British version of NSA, which is where John Brennan seemed to be focusing his attention. He wasn't meeting with the head of overall British intelligence. He wasn't meeting with the heads of British government. He was meeting with the head of the NSA version, the British version of NSA. And that individual came to the United States and met with Brennan in July of 2016. Brennan recruited GCHQ to do some surveillance for him because the CIA can't do that. So he went to them and said, hey, we can't surveil Trump because he's an American living in the United States. But you can. So can you do that for us? And that's exactly what happened, in my opinion. Now, you also had these private contractors who happen to be British, or Australian in the case of Steele and Downer. And then, of course, you had Misfit, which is this kind of oddball third wheel which they used. And his connections are with Western intelligence and the U.S. State Department. But you really had three different things going on. You had the British government, the formal, politicians, Theresa May and probably upper tier British politicians, being informed about the dossier and all that kind of stuff. And we know that because we know that Christopher Steele was sharing the dossier and that information with them. He was a former British intelligence official, now retired, but he still was making contact and still providing information to the intelligence agency and the people who are currently working at that intelligence agency, and they were sharing that information with various probably high-level British politicians. So you had that going in play. But you also had Downer is Australian, but he was the highest ranking British Australian diplomat in the UK. And he, of course, works for Hackloot, whatever you call them. They're the other private intelligence firm, very similar to Orbis, which is Christopher Steele's intelligence firm. So he also was working for a private intelligence firm, and of course they were coordinating, working together. It was a tag team effort with Steele working with Downer. And then they pulled in Misfit to help him out on the setup on Papadopoulos. And then, of course, you had Stefan Halper, who has dual citizenship. He has got British citizenship and American citizenship. He is an American, but he spends a lot of the year in the UK. In the summers, he spends in his home in Virginia in the US. But the other 9 months out of the year, for the most part, he is in the UK. And he's very connected to Western intelligence, both the US and British intelligence. He's kind of the point man in between. And I'm not sure who was putting him into play, whether it was Brennan or whether it was the British. But he was obviously a key player. So that's kind of how I see this going on. I don't buy this argument that people are making that, it was all the British intelligence and British government that was really behind it. No. They played a role. They played an important role. They were certainly involved. But no, they didn't instigate it. They were most likely brought into it by Brennan. He was wanting GCHQ to do the surveillance because he couldn't do it. And then, of course, it was convenient to have all these things go down overseas outside the U.S. because that's what the CIA does best. The CIA is not really supposed to be running these types of operations inside the United States. They're a foreign intelligence agency. So their playground is outside the United States. That's why these things had to be set up and happen in Europe, not in the U.S. And now, once all the setups and the frame-ups and the manufacturing of fake evidence was taken care of on that side of the pond, then they pipelined it back to the FBI, which actually does do investigations inside the U.S. That's the whole thing. Brennan had to create the fake evidence, but then he had to find a way to pipeline it and get it into the FBI. And he did it every way you can do it. So a key player in all this, and a person who I've wanted to be interviewed for a very long time, and as far as I know, he never has been interviewed by one of the committees, maybe by Uncle Bob. I don't know. Probably not even by Uncle Bob. But the one key guy that I think that we ultimately going to have to hear from at some point is Stefan Halper, the Fat Man, because he was such an important piece of the frame-up. He was involved in so many things. He's the one who set up Flynn. He set up Papadopoulos. He set up Carter Page. Tried to set up Josh Miller. He was back and forth in the States. He was meddling and working back and forth. He was paid by agency within the Department of Defense a total of over $2 million between 2012 and 2016, particularly 2 large payments made in 2016 and even a payment made to him in 2017. So he's a very curious figure, and I think that we need to get Stefan Halper under oath in front of a grand jury. And I think I have one really good question I would like to ask him, which would answer a lot and tell me a lot about exactly who he was working for and exactly what he was doing. The question I would like to ask Stefan Halper, if I had him in front of me under oath and I could only ask him one question, I believe I would ask him, I would say, Mr. Fat Man, you offered Papadopoulos $3,000 and all expenses paid to come to London to write a research paper on energy in the Mediterranean, specifically dealing with, let's see, was it Turkey, Israel, and Cyprus. I would say, Mr. Halper, you offered Papadopoulos $3,000 plus all expenses paid to come there to London and write this paper. Where was the $3,000 and the money to pay all of his expenses, travel and hotel and food and lodging, all those things? Where was that money coming from? Was that money coming out of your pocket, Mr. Halper, or someone else's pocket? If it was someone else's pocket, and I presume it was, whose pocket was it? Who was putting up the $3,000 and all the money for the expenses to take care of Papadopoulos? Who was putting up the money, Stefan? Mr. Fat Man, who was behind you? That's the question I would want to ask, because when you get the answer to that question, you'll know a lot about who was running Mr. Halper. And it could be British intelligence, it could be the CIA. My guess is it could have even been a combination of both, just as in the case of Christopher Steele. He was being paid by the Rotten Reverend. He was being paid by the FBI, and I'm not so sure that Steele wasn't also being paid by British intelligence. That's very likely. He might have been triple dipping. One thing's for sure, that dude got over. Well, he thought he got over. He thought he was picking up some easy money. Not thinking that anymore, is he? But there's still one other person I want to drill down on. As most of you know, I've been saying for a very, very long time, if you've been watching my videos for a very long time, that we keep focusing on all these characters in this plot. But ultimately, as I've been saying for a very long time, I think that the Rotten Reverend Clinton was the true mastermind of this entire program. And so tomorrow, unless it's a really big news days, I'm gonna really elaborate on that. So anyway, I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. Thanks so much for tuning in. You guys have a good night. See you. Bye.